there's this conversation I have to start again if no. There's this conversation I keep having about Super Hexagon, and it's become really annoying. And it's when anyone watches me play, basically they ask, is it random or does it follow a set pattern? And I say that there are patterns, but it kind of gives you them in a different order. Like, oh, so it's random. And that's the point where I don't explain, no, it's pseudo-random. It doesn't follow a set order, like you can't plan an optimal path. While it has patterns, they're unpredictable, they come at you in a different order. And they say, alright, so it's about muscle memory. And at that point, I want to say something, but instead I kind of go, yeah. But it's not. And I had this conversation with Terry recently where I said Super Hexagon is a game about learning to see, and he smiled and went, yes, someone gets it. Because basically you can't just concentrate on the center in Super Hexagon. Concentrating on the center point keeps you very precise, but means you can't predict what's coming. And the game's moving too fast for you to just react or rely on reactions. At the same time, if you use your peripheral vision or let your vision scan to the edge of the screen, you can predict what's coming. But you lose precision in the center, and then you die very suddenly the way it did. So essentially, you have to defocus your eyes and focus on the edge of the screen. The reason I'm talking about this is because it reminds me very heavily of something else. And this is one of the most interesting problems a game has ever presented to me. My biggest regret of 2012 is giving a talk titled Fuck Hexagons. Before Terry released the prototype of this. Because before that, hexagons were this thing used in advertising for sportswear and energy drinks. Or like really terrible board games that people wanted to commit commercial suicide with. Before that, that's what hexagons were for. And when this was made, suddenly hexagons. Oh yeah, I'm done stuff. So I'm going to switch to the other thing. And the reason I found Super Hexagon was so fascinating was because it reminded me of this other thing I do, which is downhill. Oh, that's not full screen. So this is the other thing I do. It's downhill mountain biking. This is me in the Alps.
Whoa.
And the weird thing about this is that I noticed that mountain biking uses my visual systems in exactly the same way as Super Hexagon, in the way no other experience does. And it's a complete coincidence that Terry can't make this one. But basically, in the center of my vision are upcoming hazards. But at the same time, I have to use my peripheral vision to negotiate whatever the bike is currently rolling over. Because if I don't, I will roll into a wheel-sized hole and fly over the handlebars and land on the side of my head and see a white flash. The stakes are high here. That's me fucking up a gap. Like, way too slow, back wheel, slam straight into it. Everyone laughed. This is like a brutal downhill run in the French Alps called Benos Red. The average grade of this, like the wide angle lens makes it look less than it is, but the average grade is minus 20%. Learn it's much steeper. I was really fucking scared. I rode this. By the end of the week, I went really fast, crashed twice, I knocked 40 seconds off my personal best, and was within 40 seconds of a downhill world champion. Not only that, I was riding a bike with no rear suspension because I've learned to ride that kind of thing. I got to the bottom, my friend Phil was also riding a bike with no rear suspension. We got to the bottom a few minutes before some Italian downhillers. They'd followed us down to the start and lost time. And they were on like big, burly, like squishy downhill bikes. And they got to the bottom in really thick Italian accents. They like gestured at our bikes and went, "You have very big balls." But the point I'm trying to make is, doing this is a really intense experience, and so I was playing Super Hexagon. They use my visual systems in exactly the same way, but aesthetically, they have absolutely nothing in common. It's a complete coincidence that Terry hit on that commonality, and I think Terry found it quite weird that it took a mountain biker to understand basically what this game is about and how the mechanics of it work. So it's not just about reflexes, it's about learning to see. And in half an hour I can work my way towards a much more interesting conclusion than this. But in 5 minutes, I just think it's really interesting that a game can simulate forms of cognition with no actual aesthetic similarity to things that might actually occur. Thank you.